Hello and welcome back to another Tachiai news update. We're in between tournaments, in between March and May, and there's been a lot of news that has taken place, a lot of changes in the sumo world, and we're here to talk about one of the ones that did not grab a headline, but we all kind of knew was coming, and that's the retirement of Yokozuna Kakuryu. So Kakuryu has struggled. He's really struggled for at least a year now. His injuries, his body had just taken too much punishment in sumo, and although he looked pretty good at the joint training, something happened in practice between joint training and the start of the basho, and there was no way that he could compete. And rather than waiting around for the Grumpy Old Man Committee or the Yokozuna Deliberation Committee to advise him to retire, he did the thing. He said, "Hey, I'm just going to call it quits here," which is fine. He's got a life, he's got a family, he's got a kabu, he's got Japanese citizenship. He's going to be a stable master, and he's probably going to be a good one, because I take a look at the influence he's had on some of his tsukibeto and some of the people he's taken under his wing, and it's all been immensely positive. Folks may have noted from my writing on the blog that I had a certain fascination with Kakuryu's style of sumo. I referred to it as reactive sumo. He allowed you to think you were doing very well, and he would let you keep going on with it until you made a mistake and overcommitted, and then he'd put you away. And the saddest part about it is that his body was not up to the task of being a Yokozuna anymore, and we didn't get enough chances to see it. But if I take a look at his career as a Yokozuna, well, we'll leave that for later. Andy, what do you think about Kakuryu's retirement? Give us your thoughts.
I'm glad that it's finally done and that the speculation is not out there again for another tournament.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad to see the love and support that he was getting afterward, because definitely there was a lot of praise heaped on afterward, and that was a bit surprising, because I understand where some of the comments were coming from of really like, well, who is Kakuryu? I mean, he had been just such an absent Yokozuna for a long time.
Yep.
That it was really, I guess, hurting his potential for his perception in the future.
Yeah.
But the Kyokai had seemed supportive, even if he did go full Kyujo. I don't know if they were on the phone all the time, like begging him behind the scenes to call it a career. But from what they were saying, it seemed like they were very supportive of him. I only wish that he had another last bout than that endo bout. Yeah. I can't imagine that was the last bout that he had participated in, and that was so long ago.
But there are so many Yokozuna exit that way. I mean, you look at Takanohana and his last bout.
I wish that he kind of stuck it out a little bit more in that tournament, or maybe started this one just to kind of get that over with. But he'll, like you said, he'll be there training new recruits. We've seen how Kisenosato has started to get some recruits. I wonder if he will go the route of Kisenosato and now Ajigawa getting a graduate degree, and before, I guess, starting up his own stable. It'll be interesting to see how he goes about recruitment in the future. Abi and I believe Shodai were Skebito in the past, and so he definitely has that successful mentorship, and I am really looking forward to seeing what he can do. But I'm also looking forward to the fact that empty chair is, I guess, going to be filled by somebody from the lower divisions now, and we'll be able to, I guess not have we'll be able to have full ranks now in May. Well, -1, but we'll see pretty soon who will be likely to try to, I guess, pick up the reins and go for a rope in the future. So,
All right, Josh. Thoughts about Kakuryu? He was a kind of if you wanted to start an argument with sumo fans, start talking about Yokozuna Kakuryu because everyone had an opinion on him.
Most people who read our site and follow sumo these days have only seen the last 4 Yokozuna, if that, in person or on TV. And for sure, there are a minority of people who remember the old televised days in Europe and the 80s and 90s and whatever, and would watch Chiyonofuji, or maybe they were like Eikaiwa folks living in Japan during like the Akebono Asashori period. But there's a pretty heavy recency bias among sumo fans, as you noted, Bruce. And I think most people look at Kakuryu in a less favorable light for his sumo compared to a Hakuho or Harumafuji. And he kind of lacked the emotional connection that people had with Kisenosato. And so what he did offer is, his technical ability. Certainly he had the demeanor that you would expect of a Yokozuna. He won 6 Yusho, which not only in the Hakuho era, because a lot of people say 6 Yusho, incredible asterisk, especially for the Hakuho era. 6 Yusho for a Yokozuna is a great return.
Solid.
Period. It's a solid return. It puts him in the middle of the pack. So it's a very strong achievement. I think the interesting thing about Kakuryu, and especially in light of what you're talking about, which is people not necessarily being in love with his sumo or not, he doesn't necessarily have that magnetism. Think about who the next Yokozuna is going to be. And this kind of touches on a point that Andy made a little bit ago. Obviously, he has a great amount of influence over a number of the current Sekitori, but he isn't someone who just shot up to the top of the rankings. He was made to suffer for many years as a rank and filer to achieve the greatness that he achieved. And he wasn't overpowering. He did reactive, as you state, Bruce, technical sumo. And I think the next Yokozuna, whether it's one of the 4 who are the current Ozeki or someone else, I think is going to have a little bit more in common with Kakuryu's journey than they will with the journey of a Hakuho or with a Harumafuji or some of these other guys that Takanohana, as you mentioned, who just shot up there. And I think in some ways, he will be able to perhaps give as an ex-Yokozuna a little bit more to someone like that who has a little bit more in common with him. And hopefully sumo fans, as they see that next Yokozuna come in, can kind of appreciate the Kakuryu era in a new context.
So you mentioned 6 Yusho, and I wanted to get a little bit more into the numbers. So he was Yokozuna for 40 tournaments, 40 basho, of which he missed 19 of them. 19 out of 40. But if you take a look at the fact that he competed in 21 tournaments, right? So he missed part or all of 19. But of the 21 tournaments where he did all 15 days, he won 6 of them, right? So a little bit over 25%, which is, that's really solid for a Yokozuna. That's good performance. But I wanted to touch on a sort of weird angle in the Kakuryu story, and that's the Izutsu kabu, right? He was a deshi, he was a rikshi in that stable, and there was a lot of speculation in sumo fandom that he would inherit that kabu and carry on the stable. And it seems like the Oyakata's wife is just a little on the creative side, shall we say, and has decided to hold out that anyone who marries their daughter, who's some kind of entertainment personality, will get the Izutsu kabu and the stable. And I looked at that and I said, what? I didn't know you could do that with those damn things. But then again, I'm not Japanese and it makes absolutely no sense to me. But anyhow, Andy, what do you think about the we talk about Cinderella stories in sumo, but this was a weird one.
Yeah, that was definitely a very odd story, and I don't know if she's just kind of holding out for somebody in particular. I don't know. I mean, there are a few Ozeki b- with potential, I guess, for matchmaking beyond just the rope, but it's just a bizarre situation, and I guess one of the really um, odd things is that, well, Kakuryu had that citizenship weight and that whole
Yep.
drama that kind of prolonged this whole saga, and it may have been a significant reason why he was allowed to be um, Kyujo for so many Yusho. But now Terunofuji is going to have that weight in that he's trying to get his own citizenship. And so I'm wondering if maybe there are like just little kabu trading, or if
I'm sure there's a
there's a
whole.
whole level of just waiting for, I guess, if they've already picked out who they really want for those kabu, and maybe trying to just make sure that uh, she's kind of settled, and or maybe she's looking at Kisenosato and trying to put out a big, uh, I guess, come hither look or whatever. But I don't know. It was it's a really really odd story, and
All
so
right, I want to hear what Josh gets over to Japan a lot. The natives love him. Sir, have you been approached to become the Izutsu Oyakata and marry some Japanese lady
Well,
and
this
take
isn't
up a
how I
stable?
wanted to break the news. It's a weird format. No. Um, there's two things about that. The first one is, interestingly enough, I mean, the Izutsu name has been in the family obviously for a long time. Sakahoko became Izutsu. His father was Izutsu before that. So there's obviously a way that you can understand that they might want to keep the name and the heritage and everything like that in the family. Um, in addition to that, though it could obviously be easy to maybe broker some kind of deal with Terao, I don't know, but who is the brother of Sakahoko and runs his own stable, Shikorayama. The other thing is, it's actually not as uncommon as you think that people take over stables by marrying the daughter of the stable master. I want to say Tatsunami was a situation like that about 30 years ago. Sato Gatake, I think, is married to the daughter of the former Kotozakura, and now his son, the new Kotonowaka, is in the stable. So there are a number of those situations throughout history where someone's been able to take over a stable that they weren't even a part of by marrying into the family, which is kind of interesting. I don't recall many situations where it's happened like this after the person has actually died, where someone would marry into the family after the name came up for grabs. Normally, the guy's the stable master, someone marries into the family, and then it's sort of presumed that they will inherit the stable
All
to
right,
keep it
so
family.
I got to put a name out there to take us out. A na-
Ichinojo.
no, it's better than that. Far better. Raja Pradhan.
He's definitely, by this point, he's probably got enough basho under his belt.
That's right.
Not necessarily in the record books, but I think he's done at least 30 times on the doyo.
That's right. He's been thrown around quite a bit. It would be fascinating to see Raja Pradhan as a stable master. But yeah, it'll be someone who has been a Sekitori and all the rest of that. We understand we're having some fun. Sometimes sumo fans are far too serious and far too, you can't say that, the guy's not even. Anyhow, so that's going to end this Tachiai news blip. I want to thank Andy. I want to thank Josh. We'll have more of them coming up, and thank you very much, fans, for watching us this far. And remember, for sumo, it's Tachiai.